Hey, what's up everyone? It's Duskmos, and today I'm excited to be sharing with you the all-new electronic audio experiments, Prismatic Wall. So as I mentioned, I'm really excited to be introducing the Prismatic Wall today, and I'm really excited about this one because it's really different to see this type of pedal just in general. And that type is a physical modeling resonator style effect. And if you're not sure what that means, physical modeling is just kind of where you're trying to mimic something in a synthesized space that represents something in reality. And so in this case, the realistic thing that is being mimicked is a bank of metallic strings. So I like to think of it as like a guitar where you accidentally drop a pencil, for example, on the neck of a guitar and it kind of hits all the strings. You get these little vibrations, and some of the strings are kind of maybe struck harder than others, and they all kind of vibrate each other. And that's really kind of what a resonator is trying to replicate, just a bank of strings that vibrate to make sound together. So yeah, quite a different one, not your average, reverb or delay, although it can get reverb-esque, which is kind of a cool feature of a pedal like this one. Okay, so now that you know what it is, let's go over some of the controls. So tune is a pitch control across 4 octaves. Mix is, of course, a wet-dry blend. Drive is the level of the resonator, and you can push it into higher driven territory so it can get a little bit crunchier and add a little bit of style. Damping is basically the decay of the higher frequencies of the resonated strings. I basically liken it to a filter, but the more you turn it up, the kind of more you get a little bit of that metallic sound, and the lower it is, the warmer and less sort of metallic or bright the sound is. So decay is the overall decay time of the resonators. The more you have it turned up, the longer sustain there is on the resonated string sounds, but it can also be pushed into more of a feedback territory and can get pretty wild if you want it to, which is a lot of fun. Over here, we've got a pair of LFO controls, so we've got rate and amount of the LFO. The LFO by default is mapped to the tune control, but you can remap that to other values, which is a really nice feature to have. So this little mini button here is a selector switch for morph or preset, which controls the action of this aux foot switch. But you can also use it kind of as like a menu button. It'll let you get into a secondary mode and control some other things as well. But by default, it switches between morph and preset, and morph will let you jump from 2 sets of knob positions and back and forth between those. So that's a really cool option. And then preset just lets you cycle through your presets that you have saved. So if you want to do that with like your foot, then you can do that. Mode button lets you select between your 4 different resonator modes. So the first one, the circle, is a single with harmonic overtones. Next is a stacked neutral thirds, and that's why it's a triangle, because you've got 1, 2, 3. Pretty easy to remember. Next is stacked fifths, so it's the little pentagon there. And lastly is chromatic, which is the overlapping circles there. And these basically change up the signature sound profile of the resonator. It's kind of like what strings get activated by what pitch ranges, and it's a little more complicated than that, but really it's just kind of fun to cycle through and just hear how they sound. And it'll also let you shift the resonators up an octave if you press and hold it. Next, you've got the wave button, and that lets you switch between a steady wave and an irregular wave. That's just the LFO shape. If you long press this one, just like if you long press this one, you enter a secondary mode, and it's just your mod settings. Probably goes without saying here, we've got a preset button, and that just switches between 1, 2, 3, preset 1, 2, 3. And then of course you've got your 2 foot switches here, aux being a momentary or latching, which will come into play when you're using morph, for example. So if you just do a momentary little hit, it'll just blip to those other settings. But if you actually fully engage it, then it'll switch to those other settings permanently. So that's kind of a cool performance effect. And then of course engage is your bypass. Electronic Audio Experiments actually did some fantastic video manuals on some of these secondary functions and explain things a little bit more in depth than I have here today. So if you're interested in those, definitely check that out. I'll put links in the description below. Quick note about the I/O and everything on the back. You've got mono in and out. You've got a control or expression input and a 9-volt power. Okay, so that's the controls. Let's get it hooked up and hear how it sounds. Okay, so first up, I've got the Prismatic Wall paired up with the OP-1 Field from Teenage Engineering. I'm coming out mono into it because it's a mono device, and then coming out mono into the TX6 and then out into the camera. So I thought I'd start with some simple synth loops, and we'll see how the Prismatic Wall functions. So first up, this is what my clean loop sounds like. So there's already a little bit of some pluckiness going on there. And then also that sustained bit. Let's engage the Prismatic Wall. So you hear the string character come in. Oh, there's some sound a little bowed. But there's also those little metallic resonances on the plucks. So we'll bypass. So you can hear very different. Now let's turn down the damping control. You can hear it kind of tames down the metallic strikes of the strings. Let's extend the decay now. You can hear I have the LFO on, so it's giving that gentle warble to it, which is really cool. Back that down. Speaking of backing things down, I'm going to back the drive down. Mix it out. Go fully mixed in. Okay, let's switch modes here from this first to the thirds. You can hear it's a little bit of a detune going on here. Let's mix it in about 50-50 again. Up the drive, up the decay. But say we don't like that tuning, we can adjust the tune knob and try to find something that maybe we like a little better. So that's fine. We'll dampen a bit, up the decay, up the drive. And go up all the way there. Really hitting those higher ends of strings there. You can go way down. It gets a little noisy when you're in the lowest range, but in a cool lo-fi way. I actually really like it tuned down. Then bypass again. Let's reactivate the LFO. A little wobbly in a good way. Let's go to random and we'll up the amount. Really interesting. Switch modes now to the fifths. So that's really nice. Let's get the LFO back in the mix. Bypass. Really cool. Going to drastically change the pitch now, so let's see what we get. And the damping. Bring the decay down a little bit. Get a bit of that drone. And now we'll jump to chromatic, which might be hard to find a good pitch for here, but let's see. Because basically this means all the sounds can activate all the resonators. So I find this mode is a little bit better on like singular sounds or single notes. See how it does on just this sound here. Kill the LFO. Up the drive. Interesting. And back to the singular. Okay, stopping there. We're going to switch to the second pattern here. And I'll go ahead and play the clean pattern. This one has a drum loop as well. Let's hear how it does with the Prismatic Wall. I know I'm feeding it a lot of note information, well, not note information, but a lot of sonics going in, so let's see how it does. Shorten the decay up. And the damping. Makes it down, but drive it. Try some of the other modes here. So you can really picture like a mallet hitting some higher pitched strings. Now again with the really lo-fi, but that's pretty cool. Shorten the decay up. Makes it a little the original. Yeah, interesting. Let's try another mode. I'm just doing the drum track now. Clean. A little bit of feedback there. So that's pretty interesting. It's bypass. Clearly quite different. Next mode. Okay, so that was a little bit of synth and drums from the OP-1 field with the Prismatic Wall. Now let's try out the model cycles. Okay, so I've got the model cycle set up now, so let's try the Prismatic Wall out with a couple patterns from this. So first up, my first clean loop sounds like this. All right, let's engage the Prismatic Wall. So right away, obviously, hitting those high-pitched strings. Big change. Leave it in this kind of dark and spooky mood, and let's switch between the presets and just see how these settings react to the different resonator types. I think because it's such a low bit rate here, in this low mode, the differences are a bit more subtle. Let's go for about here. Definitely more noticeable changes. But that being said, I'm not feeding it a full spectrum here of frequencies. Let's go all the way up. Definitely most obvious switching between these modes at this tuning. Let's go with this. Tighten up the decay. And we'll bypass. engaged. Very different. So now I want to show you the aux. And I'm just going to do a quick momentary hit and you'll hear the pitch shift. Oh yeah, probably not by a lot because I actually have it up all the way right now. So if I go down. There you go. So you can engage some LFO. Something real wonky. It's pretty cool because this actually even shifted like the mix. So for example, right now you hear it's mostly clean. And then in the aux mode, it's mostly blended out. And what's cool is you can actually, on the morph, you can set the time it takes to shift between the two modes. So you can have a really slow ramp between the two settings if you want, or this quicker. I mean, it's not just two, you can set a whole range, but I like it quick like this because it's cool to just like, I don't know, kind of hammer it in there. Pretty neat. Oh, and so now you heard the volume or the mix change because I'm still in the aux mode. And so let's say we do full wet. Change the tuning. It's all the way down. Long decay. And then we'll jump out of it. And so now when I re-engage aux, it goes back to those settings that I set while I was in aux mode. So it's really easy to change up on the fly what you want aux to do. Okay, I'm gonna go to the other pattern I have prepared here. So you have those crispy little smacks. And those will probably hit these resonators pretty nicely. So let's just engage. I don't know how it's going to sound with these settings. It's always a mystery when you are leaving it where you left it on another pattern. So let's just see what we get. Very subtle. But pretty useful. Almost more like a reverb. So you're really hearing them strike the bank of strings on the kick and the snare there. Get some LFO in there. Let's try a different mode. So this reminded me of the fact that you can actually play the tuning over MIDI. There's actually really extensive MIDI controls, so definitely watch that video that I linked in the description. You can do some really cool stuff. Force a little feedback. You can also set this to be notch tuning, so you don't have the full range. If you want to kind of jump between more kind of steady steps, which is handy as well. Try the next mode. You can hit very precise pitches. Let's LFO it. Crush it with the aux mode. And there we go. That is the Prismatic Wall with a little bit of OP-1 earlier and the model cycles just now. So I think the prismatic wall is a really interesting effect. It's not every day that you get a pedal that mimics something that can be found in real life. In this case, resonating metallic strings. And that's just really an interesting value proposition. Not everybody's going to have something that does what this does. And I think that's unique. Well, I think it might be best used perhaps on like a singular instrument or, a single track or whatever. Not a full mix. Tons of pedals are like that. But I often, if you watch my channel, I like to abuse pedals and just kind of misuse them and see what comes out the other side. And I think this holds up to running multiple tracks through a wide spectrum of sound. But because you're resonating all those different frequencies in different ways, it might emphasize, this or that. And you might want to kind of spend a little more time crafting, the overall soundscape because of that whole behavior. And that being said, I think this works really well as like a supporting character to what you run through it. Sort of like most effects. I mean, like reverb, delay, all that. They're not supposed to be the star, but it kind of reminds me a little bit of something like an ensemble pedal, like the Cloudburst from Strymon or something, where it does a lot. It has its own, harmonics and sound that it's bringing to the table, but in this case, do it in a really interesting way. Now, I also think, though, it could shine as a solo, like a hero, if you want to emphasize that string, metallic, resonant, ringing string sound. This is a great way to do that. And you can, experiment with different types of synth pitches and, percussive versus like a shorter swell, long swell type sound, and you'll get different responses. So I think this one really is one that kind of benefits experimentation, and that lives up to the name, Electronic Audio Experiments. Having the aux mode is a really nice touch. Really cool being able to jump between different settings, and each preset actually holds both the normal state and the aux state. And that's just a really cool feature that I did read that Electronic Audio Experiments wants to build into future pedals a bit more. So that's really cool, and I think that'll be really exciting to watch. This is my first time checking out an Electronic Audio Experiments pedal, and I have to say I'm impressed. I like the layout and the thoughtfulness, like I mentioned, the deep MIDI implementation, and you can do control voltage stuff. There's lots of development that went into this device, and I think that really shows. I also want to thank Electronic Audio Experiments for sending this out for me to demo on this launch. Always really exciting to be part of launches, and I hope I did it justice here. But either way, I've definitely had fun trying it out with different applications. There's loads more things I want to try it out with, and who knows, maybe I'll film those and you'll get to see them here. All right, on that note, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.